again to this edition of videos that we use to say how we can use different Microsoft Office Word features to do different things and various things. In the last video, we were able to see how we can use the mail merge feature to produce a number of letters that we can send to various recipients, where we had to come up with a starting document, which in that case was our letter that we designed, and then a second document called a data source, which is supposed to be holding our recipients plus their different kinds of information about them. Now in this video today, I want us to look at the table feature and the way we can use a table for doing different kinds of calculations on it. Here you'll have to see that the tables in Word are also capable of accommodating formulas to make certain calculations like sum, product, and so on and so on. So to do this, to look at this, we are going to use a sample question or a trial question that we are going to answer to explain how we can use the documents, how we can use the table to make calculations to certain values in Microsoft Office Word. Without wasting time, I'm going to open that trial question, or the question that we're going to use. The question is a word question, and we have looked at a series of these trial questions. This is the third that we're looking at, and the third is helping us understand how we can make different calculations to values that are held within a table in a Word document. Now, when you look at this, as usual, I always tell students, whenever you're presented with such a question, first thing to do is to skim through the question to see what it requires of you, and also to identify how you're supposed to save it. So I always tell students to do this, to save their work before actually starting to work on it, for purposes of convenience and safety. Doing this is going to help you save your work and avoid the risks of losing your work before saving them. So as you can skim through, the instruction is for us to do is that we are supposed to use the table given to us here in this question paper to do different kinds of calculations to values that have been provided within it. That has been stipulated by what is the sentence written up there. Okay, the sentence written right here. So if you allow me to go through this, the table below is showing the records of animals owned by 6 farmers in Masaka district for sales. Now that is what the table is about. It is showing records of animals, meaning the kinds of calculations that you're going to do here are going to be concerning the numbers of animals, especially the number of pigs and number of dogs and so on. So let us continue. Use Microsoft Word processing program to answer these questions. Now we have seen the table here. They have given us the table plus the different values and the different names of the 6 farmers that we're supposed to help manipulate values of the animals that they possess. Now, the very first instruction A is telling us to design the table as it is with the provided records. Yeah, that is what we're supposed to do. The way you see the table here is the same way that you are going to design it, and we're going to look at that together. The next is B. The borderline weight should be 3 point with the line style shown. So outside borders are supposed to be shown the way you have seen them here, with a 3 point, with 3 points. Okay. So create a row below and compute the averages of pigs and dogs that we're going to look at. And then transfer a copy of the table to page 2. So we're going to do that as well. Let the table on page 2 be placed at the bottom of that page. Draw a column chart to represent the 2 kinds of animals. Transfer the column chart to page 3. Then include your names, your number as header and footer respectively. So we need to understand this. This is going to be a very short video. That means I'm going to be straight to the points of answering all these questions the way they are. Then save the file as your name -formula and print your work. All right, now that we have seen how we're supposed to save your work, This is something that I always tell students to do. Go back to your desktop. In our question, we haven't been asked to create a folder, but for purposes of consistency, of course, I'll go ahead and create a folder so that I can keep my file in that folder, so that I can easily find it. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a folder on my desktop, and this time I'm going to call that folder. Let me bring it here so that it is more visible. I'm going to call that folder a name. Okay, this time I'm going to call it my name. I'm going to call it Bernard. Okay, so I'm going to call it Bernard and press enter. How I've created the new folder, I've always told you, it's a shortcut key that I like to use on my keyboard. The control key pressed together with the shift button, and then plus the letter N on your keyboard is going to help you create a new folder. So when you open that folder, the folder currently is empty. So what I'll do, I'll simply go ahead and create a new document here. This document I'm going to create is going to be a Word document, and I'm going to save this document with the name, with the instruction or the direction they've given us to save it. So how do I do that? I'll right click anywhere inside the empty folder that I've just created, and then I'll move down to new. Under new, I'll click on Microsoft Word document. So it's going to prompt me to enter the name of the document. However, when you look at the question, it has asked us to save the document as our names or my name hyphen formula. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go ahead and rename this as Bernard hyphen formula. Okay, and then I'm going to press enter. Now I've created my document, but this document has nothing placed in it yet, and that's the whole reason why it is still having 0 kilobytes. So I'll simply go ahead and open this folder, that file that I've just created. You can see that I've opened the file. How are you able to see that? You can actually notice that it has a name here. Okay, it has a name here, and it is the same name that I'd given it before, Bernard formula. That is how you know that you have saved your work has been saved, and it is now ready for receiving content. Okay, now keeping that in mind, let us move back to our question. Looking at the first example, at the first instruction, telling us to design the table as it is with the provided records. So here I'm simply going to insert a table into my new document, and we can find the tables under insert menu. The insert menu is where we can find our tables. Okay, it's where we can find our tables. Now, under insert, there are different data groups. And the data group we're interested in right now is the data group called tables. So I'll simply go ahead and click on that icon called tables. It presents you with about 3 options of creating a table. One, you can simply draw that table by selecting the number of cells and the number of rows and columns that you want to create in your table. The next is to help you insert a table by simply placing the numbers of columns and number of rows in those fields provided for you, and then clicking on OK. And the third method is by drawing this table. So to draw the table, it's actually providing you with an option of dragging and dropping. Okay, dragging and dropping. I've drawn a table, and then I'll simply go ahead and start drawing the rows. Okay, you can draw the rows in that order. So here you are literally doing the work of drawing the table manually. So you can also insert a column. As you can see, I'm inserting columns now. So that is a way that we can use to insert to draw tables within our Word document. However, I would want you to get used to the method of simply inserting the table by making use of the number of rows and the number of columns. That is going to be the second way of entering tables, or of creating tables in our Word document. However, we are going to follow what is in our question. looking at the number of columns and the number of rows this table in our question has, we are going to create our own table in that new document. So our table consists of about 4 columns and 7 7 rows. So that is what I'm going to do. Simply click on tables, then I'll click on insert table. So the number of columns our table has is 4, and the number of rows our table should be having is 7. After specifying the number of columns and the number of rows, please go ahead and click on OK, and there you have your table. Now when you look at our table, we're trying to make sure that this new table we have inserted looks exactly the same way this other one here looks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by inserting the names of the field names. I already told you what a field name is in the previous lesson, about the mail merge. But anyway, let me just say it again. The field names are the names for these columns that we have created. What we presented, what kind of information is going to be held within a certain column. It's going to be described or stipulated by whatever appears in the first cell within that column. So the kind of word that is placed there is going to direct someone who is looking at this table that the kind of information this column is going to hold is this. Okay, so those are the field names. And then when you look at a whole row, a whole row is what we call a whole row like this one. A whole row like this one is what we call a record when we are looking at tables. I like to use those. You'll find records in Word, you'll find records in database, you'll find records in Excel and so on. So the whole of that row is called a record, and the whole of a column is called a field. And then whatever appears in the first column, whatever appears in the first cell of our column, that is to say in this first cell in our column, whatever appears there is going to describe the kind of information that is going to be placed here in this field. Okay, all right. Now that we know those, we are going to go ahead and create our field names. We have name of farmer, number of pigs, number of dogs, and total animals. Now these field names have been bolded, and the first letters are capital. Okay, the first letters are capital. So I'll simply go ahead and create those. So the first is called name of farmers. Okay, let's try to be careful to make sure that everything looks exactly the same. Number of pigs. Let's see, number of pigs. The pigs is in small letters. Number of pigs. And then we have number of dogs. Yes. And finally, here we have total animals. Okay. Now looking at our first field or our first record, you can see that it is a little bit wider than the rest of the records. How do we ensure that? I'm simply going to manually increase the size of the cell, okay, by dragging the bottom line, which is for the second row. I mean the bottom line for the first row where we have our field names. I'll drag it downwards to increase it in size by placing the cursor exactly on the boundaries there. Then you can drop it once there. We can drag it once the style of the cursor or the pointer changes to that. Okay. Now keeping that in mind, looking at our table here, the table has the field names bolded and centered, okay, within this space that we have created. So we are going to go ahead and do that. But first, to do anything with the content that is being placed in our rows and columns or our records, we must make sure that the record is selected. Now, to make this bold, I'll simply go ahead and use the shortcut key Control plus letter B. Control plus letter B does the work, or you can simply go back to the home menu and then click on bold. Okay, that is an easier way of doing it, or a more visual way of doing it, so that you know what is happening. Now that these have been bolded, the next thing is to center them. Now, to center these field names, we must right click on that highlighted row or on that highlighted record, and then move down to the option for table properties. Now, under table properties, we are going to find every kind of mumbo jumbo that we can do on our table. It's going to allow us to do any kind of formatting or editing we can apply onto our table. Now, right now, our interest is to center align, or to make those words appear in the center, and so we have the option here. Okay, and remember this option, when you click on it, all right, so this is something to do with text. We're trying to manipulate text. So under the cell, we are going to make sure that we align, the vertical alignment is center, so that when you click on center and you click on OK, it's going to place those in the center. However, when you also look at the field names, you can see that they have also been aligned to center horizontally, and so that is the same thing that we are going to do by still going to the table properties and then horizontally. Where do we find that alignment? Okay, to center line them, you can simply use the shortcut key Control E, center lines them horizontally, or you can simply go ahead and use the center aligning icon that you see under the data group called paragraphs. Okay, so when you click on it, it's going to center align these. So our field names now look somehow exactly like this, except the font style, of course, except the font style. Right now, if this was given to you on a paper, it will be a little bit hard for you to know which font style has been used. But looking at my work here in this Word application, I can actually know that a font style called Times New Roman was used, plus the size being 12. So that is what I'm going to do. I'll highlight everything and I'll change this to Times New Romans. Okay, and then I'll increase the font size to 12, so that it looks exactly like what we have here on our question. Now, doing that already, the next thing to do is to enter the names of the farmers plus the values. So to do that easily, I will simply split my screen so that I can easily type and look at them. Okay. So the very first is called Surajo Tanko. We have Muhammad Gaba, and then we have Nura Adamu Yahuza. Then we have Awal Yusuf Idris. Okay, and then we have Mariam Chikonko, and finally we have Godfrey Matthew. Okay, we have Godfrey Matthew. So I've entered the names of our farmers. Now, looking at these names, you can see that this this other name as is too long to be held to be accommodated in one line, and I can solve that issue by simply adjusting our column size for the first column the same way I adjusted the size for the first row. So now, so that everything looks almost like what is already in our previous table. Then I'll go ahead and enter the number of pigs each of these farmers has. We have 200 there, and then we have 140, we have 115, 120, 100, final 102. And then under the number of dogs, we shall have 15, 55, 60, 70, 200, and finally 56. So we have finished entering the details in our table. Now, the next thing to do is to make sure that our border is bold the way it is in our question. So I'm simply going to go back to make it occupy the whole screen so that it is more visible. I'll go ahead and select the whole table. Now, to select the whole table, there's that icon. There's that icon at the top left corner of the table with that symbol which looks like a compass, compass, okay, compass direction or the direction figure, whatever it is, a compass. So on that, I'm going to click. When you click on it, it will highlight the whole. It will highlight the whole table. Now, once it has done that, any kind of formatting you do is going to be done on the whole table. Or alternatively, to highlight the whole table, since it is the only document, it's the only content that we possess in our document, I can simply go and highlight everything that we possess in our document by using the Ctrl A shortcut so that the whole table is selected. However, this will only work for you best if you have no other content apart from the table. But to be more direct, let us get used to using that icon at the corner. That icon also helps you to move this table around. Okay, it also helps you to move the table around, of course, by dragging and dropping it. Are we together? So now that I've selected that table, I'll go ahead and right click on it, and then I'll click on table properties. And excuse me, under table properties, my interest is to go to the borders and shading, because the borders is what we want to change, and our interest is to make sure that this border is having 3 points, okay, and it is only applied to the outside border of this the outside borders of this table. Now, when you click on borders and shading, a window will pop up just like the one you see here on your screen. Now, this window is going to allow you to describe how your border should look like, and these borders can be applied to the table itself, or to a paragraph, or to a text within that table. It can also be applied just to a cell. This is going to help us make different kinds of formatting on tables in the future. However, our interest right now is to apply it to a table. So I'll simply go ahead and click the point. The point. We were asked to use the 3 points. Now, when you selected the points of the borders, you'll see here that the borders, every border is going to be changed to 3 points. So right on the left, just here on the left pane of this small window, you can see that we have the settings here, where we can actually make sure that these borders are only affecting a certain part. Now, under these options, we can see a grid. The grid is what we are going to use, because it's only going to apply the 3 points to the outside borders, okay? Other than this, you can actually apply this by simply making it custom. When I click on that, inside it disappears, okay, and when I click on it again, it reappears. So I think we should just go ahead and use the grid. Let's use the grid so that the whole table looks like that, and I'm gonna click on okay. After doing this, I'll also click on OK and see how our table looks like. Beautiful. Now we have our table looking exactly like the one we have. Okay, not so exactly because I see there are variations in the columns and so on, but that doesn't matter. What we want to see is that does it look like the table we have here? Yes, it does. So we have finished designing the table as it is, provided with the records. We have entered those, and we're going ahead to put the borderline weight. Excuse me. The borderline weight should be 3-pointer. We have finished doing that, and then we are going to the third option or the third instruction, telling us to create a row below and compute the averages of pigs and dogs. So to create a new row below, I'm going to show you two methods of doing this. One method I very much like to use myself is placing the cursor at the last cell in the right bottom corner of this table. Once the cursor is actively blinking there in that cell, simply go ahead and press the tab key. Pressing the tab key is going to automatically generate for you a new row. Okay, that is one way I like to use. The other way you could use is by selecting the whole of this row, by selecting the whole of this last row. Once it has been selected, right click on it, right click on the selected row or the selected record, and under these options you are going to consider the insert option. This insert option will allow you to insert columns to the left, to insert columns to the right, or to insert rows above or rows below, or to insert cells even. So I am going to insert a row below. There it is. So whatever way you prefer to use, it's up to you. So under this, I am simply going to give it a name called average. Okay, so that I can get the average of both the number of pigs and number of dogs. Now this is where we are going to use our formula. Okay, the different formula that we are going to use. Now to calculate the averages, we are going to use a formula that can help us calculate the average of the number of pigs as well as the number of dogs. Now, one thing I want you to take keynote of is that whenever you're working on this table, or whenever your table is being created, or when it's active, you have to notice that in the menu bar, just in the menu bar, you will notice that we have two new menus that appear, and these two new menus that appear are the table design and layout. Okay, those are the two menus that appear because the table is active. I want you to take note of this. I'm going to just move outside the table. Now our cursor is outside the table, and as you can observe in our menu bar, the two options or the two menus have disappeared as well. However, when I click inside the table, the two menus come back. So those two menus allow you to do different things to this table by simply clicking on it and accessing the table, especially when you want to change the styling of the table. But we are not going to use this because the table has been directed by the question to be designed in a specific way. However, those menus come in handy, especially when you want to use the formulas for performing different calculations in our Word documents. Now, what we must keep in mind is that the word processor is not an application meant for calculations, meaning the capability of you easily performing calculations here is nothing compared to what the Excel application entirely designed to perform calculations can do. So we have to keep that in mind. Most of the times you'll be disappointed, especially when you want to apply the same column to the different cells within your table in word processing. However, there are ways we can move around that. Okay, so let's go ahead and insert averages for these number of for these animals. Okay, so we are going to start with the average for the number of dogs. So you're going to place your cursor just below just below the number of pigs, where we are going to calculate the average. Now to do that, we are going to make use of the menu called layout. Once you click on layout, we see different data groups. The data group that we're interested in using is the one called data. Now the data, under data we have the formula, and the formula is what we are going to be using to perform these kinds of calculations in our document. So I'm going to click on formula. Once you click on formula, you see this small window pops up on your screen, pops up where you can insert the formula that you want to perform. Now you can perform different kinds of formula as directed by the functions that we can see in our paste function. Okay, so under paste function you can see different kinds of functions that we can use to perform different kinds of calculations. Okay, you can see we have the average among them, the and, the abs, count, define, false, if, int, and so on and so on. We can even obtain the maximum and the minimum. However, these are limited to whatever we can find in the Excel application. But our interest right now is to perform the average. So I'll simply go ahead and click on average. Now, as you can observe, when you click on average, before removing whatever is there, it's simply going to continue typing. So what I'll do is I'll simply remove that so that I'm having average. One thing you must keep in mind is that the equal sign must always be the first character that you place before the formula. And this is something that you have to keep in mind. Whenever you're typing a formula, please always use the equal sign as the first character that appears before you place in your function name and the parentheses. So in between the parentheses is where you'll specify the range of cells that you want to perform this calculation to. So I'll simply go ahead and type above, okay, so that I can perform an average for the values above this cell where I'm supposed to insert the average. Okay, let me use this to do this. Right now, our interest is to calculate an average in this cell, right? That is our interest. We want to calculate an average in that cell. So I have placed above, okay, in our formula here, I have used above within the in between the parentheses to stipulate that the calculation must use these values above the other cell, above this cell here. Okay, so when you are performing a calculation for something that you want to when you want to perform the calculation for those figures above, always remember to use the word above. So it's going to consider all values above the cell that we want to insert our average into. Okay, same thing is going to apply when we want to calculate the total number of animals. Okay, now our total number of animals are going to be placed in these different cells that we can see here. Okay, in these different cells that we can see here, that is where our total animals are going to be. But how are we going to do this? Now we are going to use the sum. We shall use the sum instead of average. Then in between the parentheses we shall use left. Okay, why are we using left? Because our interest is to use the values that we find on the left side of our cell where we want to insert these different calculations. So we shall make use of these values on the left. Okay, we shall make use of those calculations on the left to calculate the totals. Okay, so you're going to see this as we move on, but for now let us continue with our average. Now that I've inserted the word above, you will actually notice that it's going to make the calculations for the values above. Then underneath that formula box where we're supposed to enter the formula, we have the number format. Of course, this is going to help you change how the numbers which have been calculated should appear. Okay, the hash symbols you see are simply replacing any value. They are acting like wildcards. Okay, all right, now that we have our average there, simply go ahead and click on OK, and you see it has performed our average. Now some of you have trust issues. I too personally have some trust issues. how do we know that this is the correct average? Okay, you can go ahead. You can go ahead and prove this in your calculator. I like using the run window as well. Under the run window, in that box, you can type in the word calc or calculator to open the calculator of your computer. So I'm going to use this calculator to prove whether that is truly our average, okay, by summing up all of these numbers and then dividing it by the number of farmers. We have 6 farmers. Okay, we have 6 farmers. So I'm going to go ahead um, and add all of these. Okay, so I'll start by 200 plus 140 plus 150 plus 120 plus 100 plus 112. What do I get? I get 822 as the total number of pigs. Divide this by the number of farmers. When I divide it by the number of farmers, which is 6, and I get the result, I actually get 137. So here we are very well aware that that is the average that we're supposed to use. Okay, so you should learn to trust your computer to do the right thing, especially when you insert in the right commands and the right instructions for it to perform. Right, so now that we have seen that, we are going to do the same for this. Under the layout menu, click on formula. Instead of sum, actually you can simply go ahead and type average. Average, correct spellings. Okay, don't misfire the spellings, otherwise there'll be an error. Above, for the numbers above there, we have our average. Okay, and that is that we have successfully calculated the averages for both animals, both numbers of animals. Now the next thing is still in the next instruction D is asking us to compute also the total numbers of animals in the district. Okay, total number of animals in the district. Now, to obtain the total number of animals, that will involve us to get the total number of animals each farmer contains or each farmer possesses, and then getting the total of all of those totals. I hope it makes sense. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the totals. Now, these are very many rows. Remember, this is the part where most people get disappointed because you're not provided with an autofill option in Word. But we can play around with that. I'm going to show you how. Just keep on watching. Now, under this, remember what I told you some few minutes ago about where we're supposed to place our calculation and using which fields, right? So in this field where the cursor is blinking, I'm going to insert a formula. I'll insert a formula to perform the sum of whatever is on the left. Automatically, the computer even knows, the program, the application knows that you're trying to get something, make a calculation using values on the left. So that is why it has suggested for us that formula. And you can see it's actually exactly what we want to do. So I'll simply go ahead and click on OK. There is our formula. Now, it would be very much easier for me to autofill this so that the same formula applies for the rest of the cells, but Word doesn't provide us with that option. What are you gonna do in this case? Now, on your keyboard, you'll press the Alt plus F9, the Alt plus F9 shortcut. That is going to reveal to you all of the formulas that you have used within your table. Once you do that, you can simply go ahead and copy the whole of that. Copy it and paste it in the rest of the cells here. Okay, copy it and paste it in the rest of the cells. Okay, so I'm pasting using the Ctrl V. Of course, I've always explained to you that to make these totals, to use the copy, paste, and the cut functions, we make use of what we call the clipboard, which is a temporary memory for whatever text that we have copied or whatever item that we have copied from our document. Now that I have copied these, it's going to help us do this different kinds of sums for the rest of the cells. After doing that, simply go ahead and again press the Alt plus F9 so that once you've done this, every kind of calculation is going to be using the first calculation that we performed in our first cell. However, we can simply edit these values. We can continue editing these values or updating these values by making use of the function key F9. How do we do that? You click on the value that has been calculated, okay, and you press F9. It will update these values to the exact values, okay. So I'll simply go ahead and do this for the rest of the cells, so that whatever we have there is the correct calculation as the values in the left. So we use the F9 for updating, okay. We use the F9 for updating those values, right? So now that we have calculated the totals of all the animals each farmer has, we are going to get the total of every animal in the whole district and placing it here. So how do I direct someone to know that this is the total? I could simply go ahead and type there total, okay. Let me make it capital, and I put a full colon there. So total is going to be the sum of all these totals above, okay. So I'll get that total by simply setting a formula for calculating the sum of above, all right, and I'll click on OK. So right there we have our total number of animals in the district, okay. So that is how you can perform calculations on a word document, in a word table, the way we have done it, right? Okay. All right, let me just minimize this. Right, moving on back to our question. The next instruction is asking us to transfer a copy. It's asking us to transfer a copy. We're supposed to transfer a copy to page 2. Transfer a copy to page 2. So what I'm going to do is I'll first insert a blank page, okay. Right now we are only having one page, but I'll insert a blank page by placing my cursor just below the table and then clicking on the menu called insert and clicking on blank page. So that is going to insert for us a new page just below the very first page that we have, okay, just below the very first page that we have. Now under that, I am going to copy my table and paste it in the second page. So that's what I'm going to do. I told you some time back, just a few minutes ago, that if you want to make changes or do something to the whole table, always make use of that icon in the top left corner of the table to highlight the whole table, to select the whole table, and then you can go ahead and copy it. Once you copy this table, it is going to be placed in our clipboard such that we can paste it in a different location, and this will present us with two copies of that table. So I'm just gonna go ahead and use the Control V shortcut to paste it there, okay. So we have that table in our second page, okay. As you can see, when I move up to the first page, we have our first table there and we have the second table here, which is actually the same table. So I'll simply go ahead and move on to the next instruction, which is telling us to let the table on page 2 be placed at the bottom of that page. Now matches you can simply drag and drop this table by placing it at the end of this of this page. That is not what they're trying to. You can see I can move the table simply by using that icon there, that icon at the top left corner of the table, to move it, all right. But that's not what we are asking you to do. What we want you to do is to use the table properties to align this table to the bottom of the page, Now how do I do that? After selecting the whole table, I'll simply right click on it and go back to table properties. Now under table properties, you can see that we have text wrapping here, okay. Right now our text wrapping is none. We're going to change it to around. Now when the text wrapping is selected on none, this icon, this button called positioning, is not active, okay. So when we change it to around, when we change the text wrapping to around, you can now see that this button becomes active, and it is the button that you want to click on. So when you click on that button, that small window pops up on your screen or on your window. Now, this is where we are going to change the table positioning, right? This is where we are going to change the table positioning. And remember, we are changing the positioning relative to the margin. To be specific, the bottom margin, right? So, and we're doing this vertically. We are going to align it or to place this table vertically relatively to the bottom margin. So I'll simply go ahead and use the vertical positioning, and I'll click on margin. Okay, margin. But where do I want to place it? I want to place it at the bottom margin, right? Relative to the margin, bottom and top. So I'll place it at the bottom margin. After doing that, I'll simply go ahead and click on OK and OK. And now when you look at our table, it has been placed down. Now that our table is at the bottom of the second page, we are going to go back to our question, to the next instruction that is telling us to draw a column chart. It's telling us to draw a column chart to represent the two kinds of animals. Now, you must understand this. In order for us to come up with a very nice chart, which is going to be easily understood by anyone who looks at it, we are going to get help. This application likes to get help from Excel to perform this. Now, whenever we are doing this, we have to make sure that we have copied the necessary information that we want to display on our chart from our table. Now, in this case, our chart is going to be possessing the name of the farmers, the number of pigs, and the number of dogs. We are going to ignore the total animals and also the averages. Okay, so I'll simply go ahead and select those informations. Right now, I'm using the Shift key plus the arrow keys to copy the name of farmers and the number of pigs and the number of dogs as well. So I will simply copy this. I will simply copy this information such that I will paste it in an Excel document to make sure that they are the details that our chart uses. Keeping that in mind, I'm just going to go ahead and insert the chart here, okay, just above this table. So I'll place my cursor blinking up there, and then I'll go to the insert menu. Under the insert menu, there is a data group called illustrations. That is where we're going to find the charts. Under charts, I'll click on it. When you click on insert chart, remember the instruction asked you to insert a column chart, and it is the column chart that we are using. Unless you're told to do so, don't use the 3D. Okay, don't use the 3D clustered column charts. Don't use them unless you've been asked to do it, because it's going to make it look, it's going to be hard for some people to read. The column chart is more straightforward, and it is two-dimensional, and it's easier to understand. Now, let's just go ahead and select our column chart and click on OK. Now, once you click on OK, it is going to create that chart. But the chart has been created using sample values generated in Excel. Okay, using sample values generated in Excel. So I'm simply going to go and remove everything that our Excel has, that whole table. I'm going to highlight all of it by using the Ctrl+A shortcut and then pressing delete to remove every other thing, such that I can paste the information that I had copied from my table there in the first cell called A1. Okay, I place my cursor there, and then I'll simply go ahead and paste it. I'll simply go ahead and paste it there. Now, once I paste it there, you'll see that the number of pigs, the number of farmers, and so on has been depicted in the chart, and our chart looks more presentable, right? Looks more presentable. And once you've done that, you can go ahead and close that Excel window. Okay, you can go ahead and close the Excel window. Now that we have our chart there, our chart, we must give it an appropriate title. Okay, we must give it an appropriate title. I will simply call it a column chart for both animals. for both animals. As simple as that. Okay, there we have our chart. We have inserted our chart. Now the next is to transfer the column chart to page 3. Is to transfer the column page to page 3. They haven't told you to copy it. They have said transfer the column chart to page 3. So what I'm going to do is I'll simply cut this, because cutting this chart is going to excuse me, is going to remove it from its current location, and it's going to place it in the new location. But before I do that, I have to make sure that I have inserted a new page, a new blank page. Okay, so I'm going to place my cursor just outside the box, and I'll insert a blank. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and insert a blank page. Right, so after inserting that blank page, I'll go back to my chart, select it, and I'll cut it by right clicking anywhere on it, and I'll cut it so that it disappears from its current location, and I can paste it in the third page by using Ctrl V as our shortcut key. So now we have our chart right there. Now always remember to continue saving your work. So right now we have our changes haven't been made, and you should be doing this as often as possible. So I'll simply go ahead and press Ctrl S on my keyboard to save this, or you can use the icon there the icon that looks like a floppy disk in the quick access toolbar to save it. Okay, but when you hover on it, or when you place the point on it, it suggests for you the shortcut that you can use always, the Ctrl plus S. So now we have our two tables plus our chart. Okay, let's move on to the next. After transferring that, now we are supposed to include our names and our numbers as header and footer respectively. This means that you are supposed to use your name in the your name in the header, and your footer should be a number, your number. Okay, your number. Right, so I'll simply go ahead under the insert menu. Still, I'll use a group called header and footer. Under header and footer, I'll start by inserting a header. So you select any format of header that you would want to use, any kind of format, any kind of header that you would want to use. Let me use that, and then I'll change this text in here to my names. Okay, to my names, Bernard. Right, so double click outside that part, top margin, so I have my name as the header, but still I'll need to insert a footer as well, which is going to contain my numbers. Okay, it's going to contain my number. Okay, so I think I'll simply use that. Type here, I'll type there my number 3303311. That's just the number I've come up with, but you students will be having your own numbers. So those numbers are the ones that you're going to enter here. And after doing that, simply double click outside the margin. So you can see we have our number as the footer and our name as the header in all of those 3 pages. Okay, all of those 3 pages. And then finally, save the file as your name stroke folder. That is something we had already done. All we have to do is save the current updates by pressing Ctrl S on our keyboard, and that will bring us to the end of this session, where we look at how we can use the table to mainly perform calculations in Microsoft Office Word. If this video has helped you, please don't forget to hit on the like button, the thumbs up, and also subscribe to this channel so that you can be notified on videos that have been uploaded, or new videos that have been uploaded. I thank you all for being here with me. Have a nice day.